Hello everyone. Let's continue reading 1000 Broken Pieces by Tillie Cole. Those delayed words filtered into my brain, and my old friend anxiety began to re-emerge. A small group from all over the States is going on a 5-country journey, one of healing. He rolled his head to look up at the clouds that had previously captured my attention. Teens dealing with grief. I shook my head. Every second making it more and more pronounced. I can't, I whispered, instant fear wrapping around my voice. Rob's smile was sympathetic, but he said, I've already spoken to your parents, Savannah. They've agreed it would be good for you. We've already secured your place. No, you've already finished high school and you've gotten into Harvard. Harvard, Savannah. That's incredible. Rob briefly paused to think, but then added, That's Boston, far, far away from here. I understood the subtext. I couldn't function at home, so how on earth would I function in another state at college? When Poppy died, I threw myself into my studies. I had to occupy my mind at all times. It was how I stayed above water. I had always been studious. I had always been the smart one, the bookworm, the one who talked of physics and equations and molecular structures. Ida was the loud one, the dramatic sister, the funny one, capturing all the attention, in all the best ways. And Poppy? Poppy had been the dreamer. She had been the believer, the creative one, the one with music and never-ending happiness and hope in her heart, the one who would have changed the world. When Pops died, I couldn't face school anymore. People's stares, the sorrowful glances, the spotlight that followed me around, broadcasting me as the girl who had watched her older sister die. So I homeschooled, and I graduated early. Harvard accepted me. I'd done enough to get in. But with all my schoolwork complete, my newly found time became my enemy. Idle hours spent reliving Poppy fading, her slowly dying before us. Endless minutes that gave my anxiety breathing room to strike, to draw out its advances like mercenaries toying with an easy target. I felt Poppy's absence like a noose pulling tighter around my neck day by day. I know it might seem frightening. I know it's something you might not believe you can do, Rob said, his voice gentle and encouraging. But you can, Savannah. I believe in you. I felt my bottom lip tremble as I met his eyes. I'm not giving up. A gentle smile. We're going to get you through this. We're going to get you to Harvard this fall, and you're going to thrive. I wanted to smile back, to show my appreciation for him even thinking of me, for never quitting on me, but nerves held me back. New people, new places, unknown lands. It was utterly terrifying, but I had no fight left in me to contest it, and Lord, nothing else had worked for me. 4 long years of individual and group therapy hadn't been able to lift me back up or put me back together again. I was too tired to argue, so I turned my head again and stared back up at the sky. A large cloud rolled in, and I stilled. It looked exactly like a cello. I entered Blossom Grove to the symphonic soundtrack of singing birds. No matter the time of year, there was always something unearthly about this place. A slice of heaven placed down on earth. A glimpse of the celestial, a peace. Or maybe it was just whose spirit rested here that made it so special, protecting the place that she adored so much. The trees were bare, the buds of the blossoms not yet ready to show us their beauty, winter keeping them at bay for just a little while longer. But it didn't make the grove any less beautiful. I breathed in the fresh air that whistled through the brown branches until my feet led me to the tree that protected my best friend. The white marble headstone shone like an angel in the lowering sun, dust blanketing the grave in idyllic golden hues. Poppy Litchfield stood out in golden writing, forever, always, etched underneath. I wiped some fallen leaves from the top of the headstone and sat down before it. "Hello, Poppy," I said, already feeling my throat grow tight. I knew that for 4 years after the death of a loved one was enough for them to find their way back to some kind of life, to move on in whatever way they could. Yet for me, 4 years may as well have been 4 minutes. It felt like only yesterday that Poppy left us, left Ida and me, left Mama and Daddy and Aunt Dee, left ruin. The fractures that splintered through my heart were still open and unhealed. Those 4 years had nothing changed a thing. Those 4 years had not changed a thing. A pause button had been pressed that day, and I hadn't been able to press play since. I pressed a kiss to my fingers, then placed them on the headstone. It was warm under my hand from the sun that always spotlighted in this grove, letting the world know that someone truly beautiful resided here. I peered down and saw a photograph stuck to the bottom of the headstone. Tears pricked my eyes as I stared in awe at the stunning scene it boasted. The northern lights were captured perfectly in the picture, greens and blues soaring across a star-spattered black sky. Rune. Rune had been here. He always did this. Every time he came home, he would spend hours at Poppy's grave under their favorite tree, spend a day talking to his only love, his soulmate, telling her about his life at NYU, about the apprenticeship he had secured with a Pulitzer Prize-winning photographer, about his travels around the world, visiting far-off countries and sites, like the northern lights that he would always capture on film and then bring home for Poppy to see. So she won't miss out on new adventures, he would tell me. Then there were the days when he would visit Poppy, and I would sit behind a nearby tree unnoticed and hidden, and listen to him speak to her. When tears would cascade from my eyes at the unfairness of the world, at us losing the brightest star in our skies, at Rune losing half of his heart. As far as I knew, he had never dated anyone else. He told me once that he would never feel about anyone else the way he felt about Poppy, and that, although their time together was short, it had been enough to last him a lifetime. I had never experienced a love like theirs. I wasn't sure many did. Where Ida searched and prayed for a Rune and Poppy type love, I feared it would only cause me more pain. What if I lost him too? How would I ever cope? I didn't know how Rune survived each day. I didn't know how he opened his eyes every sunrise and simply breathed. I'd never asked him. I'd never found the courage. I had another attack today, I told Poppy, leaning against her headstone. I rested my head against the warm marble, drank in the soothing birdsong that always kept her company. After several solemn minutes, I pulled out the notebook from my bag, the one I had never dared open. I traced the words for Savannah written on the cover in Poppy's handwritten script. The notebook she had left to me, the one I had never read or even opened. I didn't know why. Perhaps it was because I was too scared to read what Poppy had to say. Or perhaps it was because it was the final piece I had left of her. And once it was opened, once I finished the very last words, then she was truly gone. I hugged the notebook to my chest. "They're sending me away, Pops," I said, my quiet voice carrying around a near silent grow. "To try to make me better," I sighed, the heaviness in my chest almost bruising my ribs. "I just don't know how to let you go." The truth was, if Poppy could talk to me, I knew she'd be heartbroken at how her death had paralyzed me, wounded me irreparably. Yet, I couldn't shake it. Rob told me that grief never left us. Instead, we adapted, like it was a new appendage we had to learn to use, that at any moment pain and heartache could strike and break us. But eventually we would develop the tools to cope with it and find a way to move on. I was still waiting for that day. I watched the setting sun disappear through the trees, the waxing crescent moon rising to take its place. The golden blanket adorning us turned to a silvery blue as night arrived and I stood to leave. I love you, Pops, I said, and reluctantly walked through the grove to our home, that these days missed its heartbeat. Because she was buried in the ground behind me, eternally 17, the age I was now, never to grow old, never to shine her light, never to share her music. A travesty the world would forever be deprived of. Abandoned dreams and frozen ponds. Kale, age 18, Massachusetts. It isn't happening, I said, staring down at my mom and dad on the couch. I stood in the center of the living room, seething, body live-wired with anger as I listened to what they were saying. A morsel of guilt tried to carve its way into my heart as I watched my mom's tears spill over her eyes and track down her cheeks. But the fire flooding my veins burned a flicker of remorse to vapor. Kale, please, Mom whispered, hands held out, placating. She shifted to the edge of the couch like she would come to me, to offer me some kind of comfort. I shook my head, taking 3 steps back until I was almost on top of the unlit fireplace. I didn't want her comfort. I didn't want any of this. What were they even thinking right now? My dad sat on our ancient brown couch, stoic, like the upstanding lawman he was. He was still dressed in his uniform, Massachusetts, finest, glaring at me. Face reddened as Mom cried over me again. My jaw clenched so hard I felt my bones might crack. My hands curled into tight fists, and I fought the urge to plow them into the brick of the fireplace my back now brushed up against. But that was my every day in this hellhole, in this house full of memories I no longer wanted to have lodged in my brain. My dad was sick and tired of patching up holes I'd made in the walls with my fists, just as sick as I was of my constant stream of anger. But that anger never left me, so I guess we both weren't getting what we wanted. You're going, kid, Dad said, authority lacing each of his words. He was a man of few words, succinct, and expected his orders to be obeyed. Everything inside of me screamed to tell him where the hell to go. His hard tone was fuel to the flames inside of me. I really tried to keep calm, but I was losing it. Like a ticking time bomb, I could feel I was about to blow. Kale, we have to try something, Mom said, a subtle plea in her broken voice. Once upon a time, my mom upset would break me. Now, nothing. We've talked to your newest therapist. You graduated from high school last year. You refused to start college. This trip can help you, give you back some purpose. Now you just exist. No job, no direction, no school, no hockey. We talked to the coach at Harvard. He checks in on you all the time. He still wants you. He wants you on next year's roster. You can do this. You can still go. I don't fucking care about college, I screamed, cutting off what she was about to say. I had cared about college once. It was all I thought about, all I dreamed about, so I could join him, so that we could play side by side like we always planned. My eyes involuntarily went to the mass of pictures on the wall above my parents on the couch. Shot after shot of me and him throughout the years, playing in the stadiums, arms around one another, smiles on our faces and sticks in our hands. Team USA written across my chest. I wasn't even sure how to smile anymore. It felt foreign for my facial muscles to function that way. I averted my gaze from those pictures. No goddamn shrine to what could have been. I couldn't even look at them. They were all a lie. Told a story of a life that was fictitious. Nothing about those days was real. I'm not going, I said, a dark warning in my tone. But my dad remained unfazed. He got to his feet. His broad and tall frame had once towered over me, but my 6'4" height put me 3 inches above him now, my broad shoulders and athletic body matching his in strength and power. I'll never forgive you for this, I spat. My mom's quiet cries in the background ricocheting off the constant shield I held around me. Nothing seemed to penetrate these days. Dad put his hands in his pockets. then that's something I'm just gonna have to live with, kid. I knew there was no changing his mind. I vibrated on the spot, searing heat rushing through me like I was made of lava. Without glancing at my mom, I fled for the door, slamming it on my way out of the house. I threw myself into my jeep. My breath turned to white mist as it met the frigid cold. Snow lay deep on the surrounding fields, and my boots were soaked through just from the walk from my house to the drive. Winter held New England firmly in his clenched fist. I put my hands on the steering wheel, squeezing the leather, like it did every time I got behind the wheel. That night came crashing back into my mind. My hands shook just by sitting in the jeep. My breath grew labored, and I felt weak, so goddamn weak at how the memories took me down, at how just sitting in the car could ruin me, that I gave myself over to the anger inside. I let it flood by my body, hot and livid, until I shook from it. My muscles grew so tight in my chest that they ached. I gritted my teeth, letting the boiling hot flames inside of me sear any trace of who I was before. I let it build and build, from my toes to my scalp until it was all I was made of. Then I let it take over. I handed over the reins and roared out into the night, full of all the fury that was trying to escape. I slammed my hands on the steering wheel, kicked out my leg until my foot collided with the stereo system, knocking it out of the dashboard until it hung, suspended before me. When my voice grew hoarse and all my breath was expelled, I stayed tense in the seat and glared at the rural white farm-style house that was once my sanctuary. I hate this place now. My gaze flickered to the top right window, and a slice of pain managed to sneak through, stabbing at my heart. No, I hissed, and I averted my eyes from the bedroom. Not now. I wasn't letting that pain in now. I tried to move the car, but for a moment I was paralyzed, caught in the purgatory I'd been thrust into a year ago, when everything had flipped on a dime, and the cookie-cutter mask that had disguised our idyllic family life was firmly yanked off. I closed my eyes and let the fire take over, slamming the key into the ignition. I opened my eyes and skidded out of the drive, the tires scrambling to find purchase on the black ice that coated our dirt driveway. I smelled rubber burning as I pushed the accelerator to its max. The fear of driving was there, like a low-grade fever threatening to spike, but I held it down, just let myself burn and eviscerate any of the emotion that tried to edge through. It had to be this way. I couldn't sink back to that place where everything was empty and lacking. A sinkhole that was impossible to climb out of. Instead, I leaned into this visceral rage that now controlled me. I gave myself over to hate of the world, of the people, of everything that stood to expose what I buried down deep. But mostly I focused on hating him. The hatred and fury I had toward him were a roaring pyre doused with gasoline. I blinked, coming back into myself. I had driven without direction, without thought, lost in my head, and found myself approaching the one place I tried to stay away from. We had to try something. My mom's words ran on a loop inside my brain. No, they wanted me gone. They wanted to get rid of the son who was causing them strife. Me. No talk of the other son, but me, the one who remained. The one he had left behind. The one he hadn't even cared about when did what he did. The first sign of my chest collapsing began to kneel into my sternum. Frantically, I pulled into a parking bay and threw the driver's door open. The chill from Massachusetts' harsh winter slapped against my skin. My black Henley, beanie, and ripped jeans did nothing to stave out the cold, but I let it sink into my bones. I wanted to hurt. It was the only time I was reminded that I was still alive. That and the anger that had tunneled into my soul a year ago and had only grown in strength ever since. Before I knew it, my feet were moving. I passed car after car, recognizing each one as I did. What was I even doing here? I didn't want to be here, yet my feet kept propelling me forward. They took me in through the side door, where the sounds that were once like home to me now felt distant and no longer part of my life. Low voices shouting calls, sticks slapping against ice, and pucks and blades cutting through glass. Yet, I felt nothing. We'll leave it off there for this video. I hope to see you again in the next video. But for now, bye.